this is why we can't have nice things. You are so right about that. This is why people don't take cannabis people seriously, is things like this. Good morning and good afternoon. It is Saturday, August 10th, 2024, and we hope you had a great week this week. And this is your weekly blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. I'm your host, Jason Beck, and please remember to smash that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as well as drop us a comment below of what you think about this week's blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. So let's get into it right now with story number 1 in this week's blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. Adult use marijuana sales in Ohio are likely to start next week, you guys. The state intends to issue operation certificates on Tuesday that will allow existing medical marijuana dispensaries to begin selling non-medical pot products, the Division of Cannabis Control said on Friday. Several dispensaries have said they will be ready to begin sales on Tuesday, and Ohio voters last November overwhelmingly approved allowing those over 21 to possess, purchase, and grow limited amounts of cannabis for personal use. But adult use sales have been on hold while the state set up a regulated market for legal marijuana purchases and worked out other rules. The new law allows adults 21 and over to buy and possess up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis and to grow up to 6 plants per individual or 12 plants per household at home. Legal marijuana purchases will be subject to a 10% tax, with the revenue to be divided between administrative costs, addiction treatment, municipalities with dispensaries, and paying for social equity and jobs programs supporting the cannabis industry.
We have some breaking news out of Columbus. Recreational marijuana sales will start Tuesday. That announcement ends months of uncertainty regarding the initiative. Now, we are checking with several local dispensaries to see have they been given the okay, but we do know that they have to go through several checks in order to sell recreational marijuana. 19 News will continue to follow this breaking story all afternoon long. We'll bring you an update starting at 3. Repeating our breaking news, recreational marijuana sales will start Tuesday here in Ohio.
So, well, you guys, Ohio, they started their legal sales on Tuesday of this week. And man, you know, first of all, they sell tenths. They don't even sell eighths. So let's just start there. So I do find it interesting that they went with 2.5 ounces as your legal limit. So that is super, super interesting to me. That means you could basically purchase 25 tenths to your legal limit out there in that state. Also, too, they had some half ounces that we saw for sale that were in range around $300 a half ounce. And you know it's not that gas indoor for that price. You know it's probably some little boofy mixed light or greenhouse kind of thing. And so will Ohio be successful? I mean, I don't know. You guys will tell me probably more than anything else, but I imagine, you know, Michigan has still been eating their lunch in regards with sales, and a lot of people from Ohio are driving there. But nonetheless, let's see what you guys have to say about this. And on another note, if I do happen to murder your Instagram name, I do apologize in advance. It is not intentional. And now let's see what you guys all have to say about Ohio going legal with adult use sales, you guys. To which the CBD guy says, "Oh-I-O." It's cute. Coastal Climate Collector says, can they find worse products to show in their videos? I mean, fair point. To which the Blacklist responds and says, I'm sure this will be representative of the work available in Ohio. I think you're exactly right, Blacklist. I do think so myself. Mommy is Getting High says, prices and quality are an absolute joke. Support your local growers. Fair. Exiled in Ohio says, comments are pretty accurate. Terrible to mid-quality at high prices. Not to mention low weight, since you only can buy tenths and not eighths. Big Dabs 710 says, there's a reason the medical people ain't even like to shop here. That is so true. That's why they're all driving to Michigan. Northern California 22 says, Ohio about to have hella bunk. And you know Northern California 22 has got to be from the Bay, saying hella. Got to love it. 1999 Marquis says all the Ohio med users mad they had to pay to reinstate their card when it's adult use now. Dead. Fair. But they want to make sure that they get that tax credit. You know what I'm saying? Underscore Sheekles underscore says, so glad HB 86 didn't go through. And Pouch for Poochie says, Michigan's in trouble. I don't know if I'm buying that, but, we do like to hear all sides and opinions on this show. MLP 580 says, looks like they're doing it right compared to the shit show of Oklahoma's Wild West for weed dilemma. I mean, if you put it in that perspective, you may have a point there, MLP 580. Very possible. And to which Kirkhouse says, looks like more Mids Farms. Y'all should probably just keep coming to Michigan. LMAO. Well, I think Kirkhouse, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I think that is exactly what is going to happen is people are still going to keep on driving to Michigan, probably even Illinois and a couple other surrounding states or whatnot. But a majority of the money that's spent by Ohioans is probably not going to be in Ohio. But who knows? Time will tell, and we'll see. And we're going to follow the money and track the data and see what's going on. But nonetheless, moving right along into story number 2 in this week's blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. The laced weed stories are back, you guys. That's right, because police in Connecticut found marijuana laced with deadly fentanyl during a raid on an unlicensed weed shop on Friday. Cops were executing a search warrant at the Zaza Smoke Shop in Norwalk when they realized cannabis products containing THC from the store for lacking a cannabis license, the Norwalk Police Department said. In a quote, police received information that this location was also selling marijuana laced with fentanyl. Many of the marijuana products seized during the search tested positive for the presence of fentanyl, the Facebook post read. Hundreds of illegal marijuana products were confiscated in addition to nearly $2,000 in cash. During Friday's raid, police arrested Ali Muhammad and Ahmed Abdullah Ghalib, 21 of New York, charging him with possession with intent to sell more than 1 kilogram of cannabis and possession of a cannabis plant and possession of a narcotic substance in addition to other charges. Ghalib's bond was set at $15,000 and he is expected to appear in court on August 16th. Federal authorities continue making record fentanyl seizures at the southern border, which is the main source of the illicit narcotic in the United States. In Arizona last week, federal border authorities made their largest seizure in the history of 4 million fentanyl pills, you guys. Mexican cartels' production of fentanyl continues to be off the charts, bringing a tsunami of these drugs all throughout our communities in every state. Former Drug Enforcement Administrator, Special Operations Division Chief Derek Maltz previously told the Post. It is estimated that there were nearly 110,000 drug overdoses deaths in the U.S. in 2023, largely fueled by fentanyl and other synthetic narcotics, according to preliminary data from the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics. And this story is brought to you by the New York Post, you guys. And man, I'll tell you right now, fentanyl is manufactured in China and then shipped to Mexico and comes across our border. That part is all true. A little bit of that was left out in this story. But fentanyl is the number one epidemic. I don't buy for a second that this cannabis was laced with fentanyl. It doesn't make sense with, you could tell me a lot of any other man-made compound drugs, cocaine, heroin, a lot of these other things, I could totally see them cutting with fentanyl because that just makes sense. But if you're telling me that all of a sudden there's fentanyl-laced weed, I'm not buying it. All the stories that we have covered on High at 9 News have all been retracted since when they originally first came out. When these types of headlines come across the airwaves, there was only one that actually stood a little bit true, and that was because the person that was selling weed was also weighing fentanyl on their scale, and therefore there were some trace remnants on that flower. And so I think that is the only way that makes sense, that there would be some fentanyl-laced weed. But nonetheless, let's see what you guys all have to say about this, because the comments were very interesting, you guys. Pot Fiend says, of course, it's my state. You know what's funny, Pot Fiend? I actually thought when this came out of Connecticut, I actually thought the exact same thing. I was like, I'm not surprised this is coming out of Connecticut of all places. Just saying. Been there many times. Great state. MLP 580 says, it just doesn't make sense that people would spend extra money to put fentanyl in cannabis. I agree with that. I see why terrible people choose to do it to save money when they cut things like ecstasy and coke. But to go out of their way to put it in cannabis, there's no point to that unless they're a serial killer. Well, MLP 580, that's a thought that I never had crossed my mind, is that maybe they're a serial killer, but maybe you're onto something. I'm not too sure, but I still don't think it's happening. But nonetheless, Puffin Solventless says, no way the place was called Zaza, right? Zaza Smoke Shop. Oh, man, so good. Albo _420_CT203 says, these dudes were such dopes. You could smell the weed in the shopping plaza when you pulled in the parking lot. They would stand out in front of the store and smoke. Well, I wonder if that's why they got popped. Who knows? Who knows? Pubba.farm says, if this is true, give him life. But I find it hard to believe nobody laces weed with fentanyl, y'all tripping and trying to spread fear. I think you're right about that, Pubba Farms. Mota Mike _says, $15K bond for Fent? I agree with you. $15,000 is super, super cheap if you get caught with fentanyl. I'm not. That's another reason why this story is just. I think it'll be retracted. And an Nano Observer 515 says, "Damn, East Coast got spray packs, and now Fentiza crying. Fubar _organic says, I'm calling bullshit. Same thing happened in Monticello, New York a few years ago. They claimed it tested positive, but when sent it to the state lab for further analysis, it didn't have any fent at all. See, exactly what I'm saying. Fubar Organics. I'm with you on this. I think they're going to retract this one. Willie1KA says, I bet when he goes to court, those fent charges ain't on there because that's cap. I could agree with that too. Kilo Wildman, oh yeah, says another domestic terrorist working for the Bush family. Interesting thought. JP _bomb says, I'm pretty sure cops are not the best ones to test anything. Fair. Mikey _million says, so he had THCA coated flour, and when they put it in the field test kits that turn purple, even when you put lint, dirt, or just about anything in it, and was found to be faulty and inadmissible in a number of states now. Showed positive. They arrested him and wrote this news story. In 3 months, the lab will come back and say no fentanyl at all. I think that's pretty likely. I'm not sure if it's going to take 3 months, though, but whatever. 1904 Provision says, is this considered halal? Great question. Head of the class says, Virtus tested. You're pretty funny, bro. Pretty funny. DB Prodigy 2 says, unlicensed smoke shop. Wild the government would allow that. And the Baysesh says, I personally know someone who OD'd off fentanyl-laced. It's real. I would love to hear that story. I'm sorry that your friend lost their life, but I would really love to hear this story. Ghost Pharaoh says, cartels aren't making that shit. China is. Exactly. I mentioned that. Great job. And CertChris.jpg says, no such thing as fentanyl-laced marijuana. That is complete bullshit. Why the F would a pot dealer lace his weed with fentanyl? Number one, it's going to cost him more to get that fentanyl and lace the weed. Fair. Two, if an opioid naive person smokes it, they might die, which would be the opposite of what a weed man wants. That's true. And three, the only possible way weed can have it in it is if the dude also sells fentanyl and maybe he scaled the flour on the same scale he used for the powder. Yes, I agree with that. That's what we previously stated also. And number four, in that case, I doubt you'd even feel it or OD if it's just trace amounts from cross-contamination. I'm not too sure about that. I've heard that you can die from just the smallest amounts. But nonetheless, I don't think we're here for that debate. And number 5 says, no, you can't just die from touching fentanyl. It doesn't work like that. 6, like I said before, anytime you see this, I can bet 99% that if there was any trace amount of fentanyl or fentanyl analog, it's because the dealer in question sells weed and fentanyl, and there might have been cross-contamination. Otherwise, this is all BS. I agree with you. I agree with that part 100%. All the way, you guys. Today's PSA is brought to you today by High 9 News and the Blacklist XYZ, where we want to remind everyone that people are still going to jail for cannabis. Despite what you hear from politicians and the mainstream media, people are still going to jail for possession of a plant. As a matter of fact, there were over 245,000 arrests for possessions made in the U.S. last year for simple possession. So remember, you guys, this weekend, be safe, everyone. And rolling right along into our third story of the day in this week's blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. Marketing to children, you guys, or full-grown men with the mentality of a child, you guys? To which the Blacklist also wants to know, what's their target demographic? Oh, man, this packaging just kills me, you guys. I mean, first of all, I don't really know a lot of people that still play Sonic the Hedgehog, so I'm not sure that this is necessarily marketing to kids, unless your definition of marketing to kids is just vibrant, bright colors, which there are some people that do say that and believe that. But nonetheless, I do not think that this is marketing to kids. This is marketing to adult kids, just like many toy stores do, you know? And the Budfather says, this isn't creative, it's pathetic. Fair, the Budfather. And the Blacklist says, this is why we can't have nice things. You are so right about that. This is why people don't take cannabis people seriously, is things like this. Classic Kiss says, why not Sonic the Hemp Hog? Fair point. Fair point. I think that's a fair question. Jerry 1992 says, that looks more like a tracker for kids. I agree. When you look inside, it does look like a little tracker for kids. Who knows what they're trying to give these people nowadays? Slick _Day says, no cap, they nostalgic packs. I get them just because it takes me back Saturday mornings. Sometimes the tree be boo-boo, though. I'm willing to bet the tree's always pretty boo-boo, bro. I mean, you're buying packaging, but whatever. Wavy.Grower says, this new wave of spending $10K on packaging but $1,800 on a pea is disgusting. I say $1,800 on a pea. That's a good number, man, but whatever. $5 Shake says, first off, kids these days don't even know what Sonic is, and that's some 90s, 2000s shit. So if you mean marketing to 30-year-olds, ... I think you are right about that, $5 Shake. I totally agree with you. Rez TZ Exotic says, bring back porn packs. I mean, there is a couple companies that do that, so fair point. Green Thumb Going Dumb 15. Great name, bro. If you got to do all that just to push a pack, bro, quit. Find a new job. FOH. Fair point. NYC Lucid says, nostalgia grab. And Longhorn Exotic says, this is why we can't have nice shit. See, look at that. A lot of people have been saying that in the chat. Dablo Holshkabar says, this is top-tier marketing for impulse purchasers that want to buy Goo Goo Zaza, but can only have a palate for Chinese mids. I mean, I'm not mad at that. It's cute. Dr.1323Z says, no child plays shit like that anymore. Maybe the smell of weed reminds him of the old days or something. If you're going to market for kids, you'd have to do like some Fortnite packs or something like that. Fair point. I'm not mad at that comment either. Exile.in.ohio says, think they're trying to sell nostalgia more than anything. If it was some Fortnite pack, I'd be suspicious. Look at that. Fortnite has been pretty popular, you guys. Fortnite for the win. And Danny Forever GXL Guild says, we making it out of Green Hill Zone with this one. Cute. MedStation_NYC says, you gonna open it up and it's gonna be some LCG. Then you'll gaslight yourself into believing it's za. Man, bring back the sandwich bags. I'm with you on that. And Jess_saying says, yeah, Metric comes in and implements all these rules. Why can't we embrace our inner child? Well, in fair point, Metric isn't the one breaking all the rules. It's the advertising guidelines that the states put in. But nonetheless, fair point. Fair point, you guys. And rolling right along into our fourth and final story of the day in this week's blunt wrap-up of the Blacklist XYZ. On Wednesday, Governor Gavin Newsom's office announced that authorities have seized more than $120 million in illegal marijuana since the start of the year and destroyed 37 tons of unlicensed cannabis, including nearly 123,000 illegal plants. In a quote, the legal cannabis market brings billions of dollars to our state's economy, helping to sustain California's position as the fifth largest economy in the world. Newsome said in a statement, we will not tolerate illegal operations that threaten our economy and the health and well-being of California communities. Since the start of the year, the state's Unified Cannabis Enforcement Task Force has raided 11 locations in Los Angeles, Orange, Mendocino, Tuolumne, Shasta, Kern, Alameda, Yuba, Trinity, Butte, and Humboldt counties, and Newsom's office said photos released by the task force show elaborate grow operations that included rows of greenhouses, and recent raids have also targeted operations within California state parks. Newsome created the task force back in 2022 to improve coordination between local, state, and federal agencies, and since then his office says agents have seized over $495 million in unlicensed cannabis by executing 309 search warrants, arresting 38 people, and seizing 150 illegal farms, including 22 since January. California voters approved the use of marijuana for medical purposes back in 1996 with Proposition 215, and in 2016 approved it for adult use, better known as Prop 64, and the source for this is KTLA, you guys. Well, I do find it interesting that they want to tout this statistic. It is kind of funny that, they make cannabis legal and then people still go to jail for it and whatnot. So, but everyone knows that cannabis still isn't legal, but whatever, you guys all know what's up. To which, rolling into these comments, that's right, Mr. Catalyst, CEO himself, Mr. Weed for the People says, in Metric, there's a few billion. He should start there. True point. True Hayes says gray market would also supports the economy. Don't get OT twisted. I mean, fair enough. I mean, people that provide for their families that way, they still participate in the economy. You are totally right about that. Warrior_in_the_garden831 says, haha, something tells me this isn't even a drop in the bucket. Fair enough. Charlie Stripple says, but illegal operations are the backbone of the legal operations. How is this going to work? That is an interesting point that no one wants to talk about. Spliffnut says, Newsome shutting down grows that compete with his cop buddies grows that started in 2018. FTP. Well, I mean, also, too, Governor Newsome does have interest in a licensed grow, too, to my understanding, but nonetheless. Info.from.mendo says, but yet they distribute fentanyl on the daily. Good job on making something legal and still arresting people for it. You are so right, Info from Mendo. JXKey.7X says, happy they're focused on stopping the crime that's really setting California back. True point. They don't even want to address the real crime that's happening here in California. You're so right about that. RightyCon says illegal meaning unlicensed, so it's okay if you have permission. True that. AMG_Haas says, bro too worried about stealing weed while the rest of California is just stealing. Fair enough. And Isa Hanan says, that's good. Get the Eagle 20 out of here. Fair point, too. And to which Truckee_Tahoe_organic says, at $4,800 per unit or $800 per unit. That is another great great question. What are they valuing all of this stuff at? We're going to have to do some calculations and get back to you. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in to this week's weekend episode of the Blunt Wrap-Up of the Blacklist XYZ. I'm your host, Jason Beck, and make sure to tune in to High at 9 News every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast for America's #1 daily cannabis news show, High at 9 News, as well as continue to comment on all the posts the Blacklist XYZ and the Blacklist post throughout the week for your chance to be featured on next week's Blunt Wrap-Up of the Blacklist XYZ. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as well as drop a comment down below with what you think about this weekend's Blunt Wrap-Up of the Blacklist XYZ, brought to you by High at 9 News and Cloud Media Partners. And have yourself an amazing and safe weekend, everyone.